Hi, I'm Dan Corbett, founding partner of Black Iron Group, and I'm here today with a great client with a great story. So I'd like to introduce Paul King from Jadco.
Hello, everybody.
So Jadco makes products designed to resist abrasion in kind of very tough environments like mining and steel mills. Paul can tell you more about this, but essentially think about those big trucks that you see coming in and out of mines. Jadco makes the bed liners for those trucks so the rocks basically don't fall through and hit the ground, right? I mean, is that close enough?
Yep, we're a steel manufacturer based outside of Pittsburgh and one of the few left in the country, but very well known throughout the world for the high chemistry, high engineered steel products for extreme impact and wear abrasion.
Extreme impact and wear abrasion. That's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
And Paul is the biz dev director for Jadco, and he led the Salesforce project. So my idea today is to kind of walk through the project and walk through sort of what we did and more about the why we did it and what we got out of it as opposed to the how the integration goes. You've heard us do webinars on that. This is more about the why. So without further ado, let's kind of jump in. Right from the start, Jadco was a little unique in that integration was, part of the critical path. Basically, when we got introduced to Jadco, Job Boss Integration was at the top of the Paul. Paul, why was that? What made integration the most important thing kind of for that project?
So when I joined Jadco almost 2 years ago, one of the first things we recognized is that the outside salespeople did not have a view to the data, the information, the quotes and the orders and the shipments from the ERP system, which is called Job Boss. So one of the things that became evident to me was that there should be, hopefully, a way to take that ERP data and see it and interact with it, because the salespeople were having to make phone calls, send emails to the inside salespeople to get information for their customers. And obviously that's a huge time waster for everybody, for the customer to get their answers, for the outside salespeople to get their answers, and you're wasting the time of the inside sales. So how can we get this information up and viewable? So through some discussions, my background, my former company, I used Salesforce previously. So we were introduced to Black Iron, and we talked about ways and how we could take that Job Boss data and upsert it to Salesforce so people can see it. So we started with two things, two objects. The first was quotes, and the others are sales orders. And so we were able to see both of those objects, and I think, started with 9 licenses, and that quickly evolved to 15 or 16, and now we're up to 24, I believe.
Wow.
So, and as Dan knows, once we had one object up and running, then we wanted more. We wanted to see more data from Job. And then I spent a lot of time building reports for the outside salespeople and inside salespeople and the executives, building dashboards with that information. So everybody's over the moon with what they can see and do. And then clearly we integrate that now, the data from Job Boss, to the Salesforce functionality, which is opportunities. That's our biggest driver as a sales team, is to create opportunities and convert them into won orders.
Excellent. Very cool. Is that kind of a scale? How many quotes roughly and how many sales reps are doing them in a week or a month or a quarter?
So quote count year to date, like they've done 3,878 quotes already this year.
Up to June. So, I mean, that math, it's like 8,000, going to be 8,000 a year roughly. So.
Exactly. Our role, working with the executive team, is to try to filter through who are our best customers, focus on those guys, and if there are customers who are not performing well, meaning that we're doing a lot of work to generate quotes for them with not a lot of orders being received, this now with what you've done at Black Iron and what we can see it easier in Salesforce is that I would call like the poor customer. the customer, there might be customers you want to fire. So
exactly,
it helps you identify those.
There you go. All right. So I said we weren't going to talk about the how, but I want to talk about the how for about, I don't know, 90 seconds and say that as kind of a prelude, Job Boss doesn't have an API. There's a lot of older ERPs that don't have an API. And I think a lot of people say, well, that's it, pack it up and let's go home. But right out of the gate, we kind of figured out a way to get to the SQL layer in Job Boss. It's an on-premise kind of server-based tool. We got to the SQL layer, and we built SQL views over that data. So to Paul's point, we could read it, upsert it into Salesforce, so you could see it without interfering with the kind of the Job Boss database. But I think one of the keys to that was having someone like Paul who knew the data in the ERP to help us build the views. So can you just kind of give us a feel for how that unfolded with Jerome? I mean, I thought it was a kind of an interesting process. And what kind of skills do you think someone would need to do that kind of in another place?
It was, so I had to basically, so when Jerome built the SQL views for us, what that looks like to me as a non-technical guy were Excel spreadsheets. So now I'm looking at these ginormous tables of spreadsheets and trying to make sense of what I'm looking at on the spreadsheet versus what we're seeing in the Job Boss ERP. And I won't lie to you, that was tedious. And even because I figured that I would get a lot of help from the users of Job Boss, and they're all very helpful, but the field names that they would see sometimes in Job Boss didn't match with the data that we wanted to put up into Salesforce. So there was some trial and error there. But working with Jerome, we were able to bring up the fields that we wanted to see into Salesforce, and it worked. But again, it was more trial and error than anything else, Dan. So
yeah, I think that even if you have an API, it feels to me like that mapping exercise we did with you guys was critical. I mean, just taking everything that an ERP gives you, shove it into Salesforce and wishing for the best is really not. I thought the approach that we took was really useful there. So,
for sure, definitely, because one important thing, I knew from my previous experience with Salesforce, I kind of work backwards and you think about what reports do you want to write? What do you want to see? So I kind of mapped out different reports that we wanted to create from it. So what order status reports, quote status reports, things like that. So kind of
sure.
Then you go and hunt in the ERP and you find the fields that you're going to need to generate those reports. So it's kind of the approach that we took.
So here's kind of a picture of a sample account. You obviously can't read it for privacy and competition reasons, but you can see that there's sort of data over on the right-hand side in a matrix way, but then there's these charts, these report charts in the middle that give you the ability to kind of take that data and draw it visually. So Paul built out these graphs to kind of help the reps. Why these, Paul, and what do the reps use it for, kind of on the account page?
Yeah, so you want to be able to see the account, and we want to see how many orders that we're getting from the customer, so that's the bookings. We want to see the quotes that we're getting from that customer. And then the funnel down below is your opportunity stage funnel. So you want to kind of one quick view to see, is this a good customer, or is this a customer that's not giving us a lot of orders or not doing a lot? Also, for the management to have a look with the sales rep to talk about this customer and do a deeper dive about the customer, and are they delivering business that we want? If not, what do we need to do to make that happen? So things like that.
Cool. Very cool. And then, kind of one of the other things that I was kind of a phase 1.5, but we did this towards the end of the project. We built this object called bookings, and bookings was a combo of sales orders and jobs into a single object. I felt like the reason was so you could see all the revenue regardless of where it came from. But what is that close to right? Why did we do bookings?
Yeah, so Job Boss functionality is it allows you to create orders in two ways. One is with the sales order and one is with the job. I won't get into the weeds of why that is and why we're using it that way, but we needed one roll-up of the two of them. So you, Dan, or Jerome created a custom object called bookings, which took those two objects and rolled them up and summarized them for us so we can easily see the total revenue of both objects together. It's a field you created, I believe, too, that shows that.
Yeah, and kind of a little inside baseball, but essentially the way we did that was in Salesforce. We used Apex code, and again, I'm into the how, which I didn't want to do, but we took Apex code and took data we already had and transformed it into something else, all within Salesforce. So it was, we didn't have to go back to the well, in other words, to kind of get that information, and this gave them sort of the picture of what they were looking for in that combined revenue piece. Here's a picture of a dashboard. This one happens to be for the inside sales team. And I wasn't trying to prove that you had an inside sales rep dashboard, but what I was trying to say is we've got different views. Paul built different views for different roles within the organization to kind of give them different visibility into the data that we were pulling over from Job Boss. How many views did you build out, like for outside reps or inside reps? How did you sort of break it out?
So there's definitely there's an executive dashboard view and different dashboards, right? So the three categories are executive, outside sales, and inside sales. And then each of those roles has different dashboards that they can look at. So for example, there might be a dashboard just dedicated to the whole business, all of the accounts and shipments being made and invoices, things like that. There's a dashboard that's just dedicated to opportunities, what's open, what's closing this month, things like that, by industry, by type. So we just created it, you create the reports first, and then from the reports you create the dashboard. So also important to note, Dan, that the other thing is that with the roles and the profiles, we're creating these views where we wanted the outside salespeople to see all opportunities for all of the accounts, but we only wanted them to see the orders and the quotes and the shipments for the accounts that they owned. So that was some magic that you guys performed on the back end too. That was kind of cool.
And then in the beginning, you had talked about data availability, but that's almost like data digestion, if that can be a thing, right? It was sort of like, this is what you're allowed to eat, and this is what the other guys are allowed to eat, and they're not necessarily the same. Very cool.
Yeah, so that was great. And that was something I learned in the process, that we could do stuff like that.
This is a view kind of across a couple of objects. I found this in your system. It was a way that you were presenting quote information, stuff that may or may not close, right?
Right.
Side by side with sales orders, which are definitely closed. I mean, what does your team do with kind of this sort of data where you're mixing and matching from different objects or processes in Job Boss?
This one is basically, it's a look backwards to see, where we were strong in certain areas, what the ratios are, and looking to, a lot of it looking backwards is data mining. So we're looking for who are those customers that used to be strong for us a few years ago that have dropped off, or who are the customers that were weak and now have picked up, and then drilling into that to figure out why that's happening. Is it because of the customer's own internal changes, or is it something that we're offering that's new to them and solving a problem for them? So that's all about going, data mining, looking backwards.
And do you guys do that in a formal way? Is it just sort of everybody hunting and pecking on their own, or is there kind of formal sales meetings or ops meetings where you're sort of sitting down and going through that to figure out like you said, the good accounts versus the poor accounts?
Yeah, that was for basically year-end kind of review towards the end of last year. It was the first time that this type of data was available to the executives and the outside salespeople of Jadco, so it was new to them. So it just really helped conversations about which salespeople should focus on what accounts in the year coming, which is 2021. So it just really provides a lot of guidance of, giving direction to the outside salespeople where they should be focusing their time and effort.
Sure. Okay. And then finally, I took a picture of what was a user dashboard, essentially. So after you guys kind of got rolling with this, you eventually opened it up to the individual reps, right? So it said basically, here's how you use it. What's, best of luck. How did users like that? Did a whole bunch of them kind of jump in and start building their own, or were there people that sort of didn't embrace it? How did that, you know what I'm asking? How did it work when you kind of rolled it out to the general public who wished them luck?
So the manager of inside sales loved it because it was the first time he could see workload. So I think there was 5 or 6 different inside salespeople that worked below the manager, and the manager was also doing work himself, and he could see clearly that, oh my gosh, I'm doing a lot of work, and then these other 2 colleagues are doing a lot of work, and then these other 3 or 4 colleagues, looks like they could take more workload on. So I think it helped them make decisions of shifting workload. I think it also highlighted to them some of the customers that they were spinning wheels with, doing a lot
Sure.
of quotes for with not a lot of orders being sent back. Because a lot of times, uh, everybody gets busy, and all you're doing at some point is inquiry comes in, quote goes out. Inquiry comes in, quote goes out. You're just trying to get things off your desk, and this is the first time that they're able to look at this data in this way and help make informed decisions. So
Exactly.
yeah, and still they look at it. The users, I still think they live mostly in Job Boss, because for the inside salespeople, they're living in Job Boss. I think they do spend a little time in it, but it's really for the benefit of the management, executive team, and outside salespeople.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I have no real big finish. Any parting wisdom you can sort of give to people on the why to do this? The how, I think we can cover in scoping calls if they come up, but why, why do this? Why go through all this trouble?
In our instance, well worth it, because again, the outside salespeople had zero visibility, so they're having to make phone calls into the office frequently, multiple times a day, sending emails multiple times a day, asking status of certain things, so quotes, order shipments. So now that's gone, and so they have every. It was because I was, we approached this as look at it through the lens of the outside salesperson. What do I, and I know myself, I'm an outside salesperson, so I know what I need. And
Sure.
so really giving that to our own, the rest of our team on the outside sales. So that all by itself is a huge benefit. The next chapter that we're looking at, as Dan, is now, we're currently doing a one-way upsert from Job Boss to Salesforce. And it's really, we're looking at views. Now, I would like to work on being able to do quotations from Salesforce. So build out a material ID, or a product catalog that we can have in Salesforce, and generate quotes from Salesforce, and then let the ERP be our ERP, meaning once you get the order and you need to manufacture something, then do it from there.
All right, Paul. Well, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate you doing this. Thanks for kind of giving us a view into the why, and we appreciate your help articulating that.
Thank you. We appreciate all the great work that we've done together, and we look forward to working more with Black Iron.
Thanks, Paul.